Good day, everybody. Welcome to Shepherd's Corner, and we're beginning with a new year. So, Happy New Year to everybody. Happy New Year to everybody. And what a way to start the new year. You know, as a republic, we kind of struggling. You all do get that kind of feeling. We kind of struggling. So, we're looking at the Archbishop's address, and, you know, I want to kind of inveigle him to have a conversation with us, as we struggle to evolve as a republic. That's the theme, the struggle to evolve as a republic. So, good day, Archbishop Charles Jason Gordon. Are you struggling?
Yeah, we're struggling to evolve, though.
But Lord.
Struggling to evolve. Now, I just want to give a little viewer warning. The Surgeon General has to get a little warning. The Archbishop has to get a little warning.
Buckle up.
And make sure you have a lap belt to it. Not just an over shoulder, you need a lap belt on this one. Let's go.
So my question is, what do we need to do today if our children and their children's children are to stay and make Trinidad and Tobago their home with all this balancing we do it?
It's a beautiful question, because we're not asking what we need to do if we're going to get our children to stay, but our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. And so the nature of the question is that we have to start seeing Trinidad and Tobago as our home. Not only our home for this generation, but for the next generation, for 4 generations. And then we have to ask ourselves, what would we need to do today to be able to ensure that 4 generations of our family stay in Trinidad and Tobago? What are the actions? What are the things that we need to do? What are the societal challenges that we need to face honestly? If our nation, if our children, their children's children are going to be resident in Trinidad and Tobago and make this wonderful, beautiful, amazing place home for the next 3 to 4 generations. And that is a big question, because there are many things that we could look at. But there's one thing I think we absolutely have to face frontally and head on. And that one thing is justice in Trinidad and Tobago. And the consequence of not facing justice frontally, I believe, is corruption.
Wow.
And
wow.
the way that corruption has become endemic in the whole society. You see, corruption, if I believe I only securing this thing for me, then I taking all I could. But when I had to think about my children living here, and I realized my taking and my being corrupt, and let me be clear on corruption. When we talk corruption, we start to think about the airport scandal and what tongues say about this one and that one, thieving this and that. But when you're working, when you're paid to work 20 days a month, and you're working half days, and when you're at work, you're not really working, that's corruption. Yeah, that is corruption.
Yeah. I mean, and half the time you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you're on WhatsApp, and you're supposed to be at your desk. And as the boss passes, all of a sudden you minimize the screen.
All of that is corruption. When you're taking home things from the office, paper clips and paper and this and that, all of that is corruption. We look at corruption in its end result. But we don't look at all the little ways in which we are being corrupt.
Right.
In our normal interaction on a daily basis. And all of that is really where we have to focus, because if we don't become more efficient in the way we work and what we do, then we're not going to have the revenues to sustain our livelihoods and our lifestyles. And then we're not going to have the nation that is going to be working the way it is. So I want to start by saying, when we look at Trinidad and Tobago in the Corruption Perception Index, and in this index, the lower the rank, the more corrupt. So the further down you are on the ranking scale, the more corrupt. Number one is least corrupt, and number 180 is most corrupt. Trinidad and Tobago ranks number 82 out of 180 nations in the world.
Wow. Wow, that's like real, we low.
Remember, this is corruption perception, okay?
Yeah.
It ain't saying it is, but it's the perception of it. Now, it don't sound so bad, you know. I mean, we better than 100 different nations, plus or minus, you know. But then when you take a look at it, and you realize that Barbados ranks number 29, Bahamas 30, St. Vincent 36, St. Lucia 42, Dominica 45, Grenada 52, and Jamaica 70, you have to ask a question. How is it possible, with all the money we have flowing through us and all the advancements that we have made, how is it possible that these other newly independent Caribbean countries are ranking better than us in the Corruption Perception Index? How is that possible? And that's a very big question, because if Jamaica is 70 and we are 82, and if Barbados is 29 and we are 82, then I would say something wrong. Something very, very, very wrong. And that's where I would start. If we want our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren to commit to living in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the first things that we have to address is we have to address this matter of corruption.
Boy, you just put me here on a spin. I hope fellas had a bow buckled up, you know, because
I warn people, you know.
Yeah, I hear you warn people, but when you're saying that we are ranked 82 out of 100 nations, and that little Barbados is ranked 29, our brother Jamaica, who is a little bit bigger than us, is ranked 70, and we've been so blessed with so many things that are going for us, and we are so corrupt. At least that's the perception. And I don't think that we're too far from the perception. That's my feeling.
Well, I don't think it's surprising that in an article on business transactions in the Trinidad Guardian on March 6, 2021, Gail Alexander claims a total of 1,831 suspicious transactions and suspicious activity reports worth $27 billion were received over 2019 and 2020 by the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. And by the way, that's the most it has ever received in a 10-year history.
Wait. You're quoting from a newspaper here. The Trinidad Guardian is what you just said, right? March the 6th, 2021. You said a total of 1,831 suspicious transactions.
Yeah.
Right? With $27 billion.
Correct. Correct.
You
know, those are big transactions, eh?
Wow.
They were very big transactions. To 1,800 transactions worth 27 billion. Do the maths. Those are not small transactions. But the worst part is it's the most the unit has received in a 10-year history.
And this was between 2019 to 2020.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah. Yes. No, you know, the perception of corruption in Trinidad has been endemic for so long. And the nice thing is we all talk about it, but we don't do anything really seriously about it. Because I suppose the average citizen just doesn't know what to do. But
you're saying that, or you don't think that maybe we might be all part of the corruption too? We might be all benefiting from a little piece of the corruption, you know? So we're not going to shout out too much.
well,
it's just, that's how you have to do business in this place. So, you know what I mean?
well, you see, I'll come back to that in a little while. I leave that one there for now. I'll come back to that a little while. You know, I'll tell you the other side of that coin. Huh? Any attempt at doing business in Trinidad and Tobago is particularly practically impossible. I don't know what your experience is.
You don't
planning permission.
You don't want me to start. You don't want me
planning
to start. They'll lock me up.
Is a nightmare. Many business people that I know have gone to other Caribbean countries to do development and business because of how difficult it is to do business in Trinidad and Tobago. The time lapse, you know, between when you put in for your planning permission or whatever it is you need, is either corruption or incompetence, or I would say both. But everything from getting a driver's license for a young person to building permission is a major, major drama in this beautiful Trinidad and Tobago. I was talking to several young families, well, families where their kids are now turning 17 and 18, about the driver's license thing. And, you know, I said to one person, well, you know I've spoken to 15 different people who got caught in this enigma where they know their child know how to drive. They went down to the license office with their child. They saw the test that was done. They saw how blatantly foolish the instructor acted to dismiss their child. And they also understood that it is either they pay a bribe or their child will never get a driving license, no matter how good their child can drive. And one person said to me, they are corrupting us in this country. They're corrupting us. Because when a normal thing like a child getting a driver's license cannot happen unless somebody gets a bribe, and you see your child just going down and down and down because they're doing the thing right, they know what to do, but you sticking to your guns and you're not willing to give any bribe, and they're going back 3 and 4 times, and all you're doing is dismantling your child's self-worth. What do you do as a father? What do you do as a father? More than one parent said to me, this country is corrupting us. It is corrupting us because we don't want to do it. But then when you watch your child, what do you actually do? And then what do you teach your child when you do that? You're not only corrupting us, you're corrupting the child too. And these are, I mean, these are things that parents have cried to me about. What do you do? Well, we have to say that that's not okay. That's just not okay. You should be able to receive the service that you desire from every state enterprise without having been faced with having to be corrupt to receive the service. And that is really drama. And that's why I call it major drama.
But I want to add to the drama, because I'm not telling you about what somebody else said. I'm telling you about what happened by own family. My daughter has a date set for her driving exam. Now she's gone to all her lessons. She has the date set. And it just so happens to be the same day as a CAPE exam. So she goes and she said, well, you know, Dad, I have to reschedule this thing because it's the same day as my CAPE. So I said, well, okay, you know what to do? Say, go down. So she goes down to her instructors to tell them, listen, you see, on such and such a date, there's no way I could do it because I have a CAPE exam. And the instructor said, no problem. You could drive already. Just bring me X dollars and you don't have to sit a test. You will get your driving permit. Now, my daughter came home and she said, Daddy, this is madness. This is mad. So I'm just telling you the other side of the coin, where certain people are not even sitting an exam, but they're getting a driving permit.
Correct.
You know, so you know, my daughter didn't sit her exam for about the next 5 years. She said, Daddy, I'm not going back there. I said, I wasn't sending you back there. So she waited until she completed university
to get a driver's license.
To get the driver's license. Now, that is, you know what I mean? And that's right here in our 2x4 country.
And that's why the ease of doing business index, which is an international index, again, 190 nations involved in the ease of doing business index. We are 105 out of 190. You hear that one?
I hear you, partner. I hear you.
105 out of 190 in terms of the ease of doing business. In other words, they have 104 countries that is much easier to do business in than Trinidad and Tobago. And they only have 84 countries that it's harder to do business in than in Trinidad and Tobago. Let me put it that way. Does that gives you a picture?
Yeah, in the whole wide world.
When the ease of doing business is so ridiculous, business people then find difficulty in doing business and staying just and upright citizens. And so whether it is the grandfather clause, you call a friend and ask a favor and ask for this or ask for that. Now, the service should be given fair, without fear or favor. It should be given and efficiently. But that's a challenge that we face in our wonderful country. That's the major challenge.
Corruption.
You know, David Rudder had a calypso in 1996. It was a boss. The name of the calypso was Another Day in Paradise. Those who was following back in that day in the Catholic News might remember I did 6 articles in length on Another Day in Paradise. 6 articles on one calypso, because the calypso had some very powerful lyrics that forced the envelope. Here he starts, but then forge is the first word of the anthem. You see, we so damn corrupt, that is the problem. Forged from the love of liberty. He turned it around and said, but you see, forged, that's the first word of the anthem. We so damn corrupt, that is the problem. Now, rather in his poetic best, names the challenge facing our nation. This is back in 1996, you know. And nothing was, back then was child's play to what we're facing right now. Real child's play. That challenge is really something. Because I think things have only gotten worse since 1996. And when a nation is corrupt and there's no ease of doing business and the perception of corruption is really high, the citizen is being denied its fundamental rights. The right to justice, the right to fairness in the economy, fairness in the government, fairness in doing your business, fairness in getting your planning permissions, fairness in getting the things that you need to get. And this is a basic expectation that every society should have, the expectation of fairness in society. And that expectation of fairness is really one that we've been denied by how difficult it is to do things. And unless anybody say I'm pointing fingers, between 1996 and today, we've had many different governments. Huh?
Yes.
Not one or two, you know. We've had many different prime ministers between 1996 and today. And it has stayed true. The basic expectation of fairness in society is a glue that holds the whole society together. You remember growing up as a child?
Yes.
Your mother have a piece of cake there. How many are there?
Well, my father had 7 children, so it's 7 of us, daddy, mommy, and my grandparents lived with us. So a big family.
And that piece of cake had to cut into how many ever slices?
Correct. You're talking about 7 plus 2 is 9 plus 2 is 11. And anybody who passes it.
Right. And you all used to have the argument of which half is the bigger half?
No. Never had that argument about which is the bigger half or who gonna get the bigger slice.
Right. But that sense of fairness is instilled in us from a child. Huh?
Yeah.
From a child, if it was 2 of you home and your mother cutting an apple in 2 for you and your other brother, and it's only 2 of you, you know that's big bacchanal about who get the bigger half.
Yeah. But I think your mother had a solution for that.
She absolutely had the solution. It was 2 of us. You go in and cut, and you go in and choose. And she done with that. She done with that, you know. Done with that. You cut, you choose. So in other words, if you cut badly, and if I cut badly and my sister choose rightly, and she come away with more apple than me, that's all on me, you know. My mother out of that. She cut it, and she ain't choosing. She out of that. But the point is that the sense of fairness is instilled in us so young. You know, Barbados had a beautiful term, eh? So-and-so has unfaired me.
Unfaired you.
Yeah, they turn it into a verb. So-and-so has unfaired me. That you have done us an injustice to me. They don't say so-and-so has been unjust to me, but so-and-so has unfaired me. Because the sense of fairness is so close to the skin, eh? So close to the human condition, so close to who we really are. And that sense of fairness that is instilled from childhood in us is really what society ought to deal with in a way that really is equitable. That whether you come from wherever, you should have fair and equal treatment in the business place, in the government sector, in the schools, everywhere. And when that is not an expectation anymore, that starts building a lot of tension in society. That builds a lot of tension in the groupings in society. And all of our big explosions were based on that sense of unfairness. 1970, it was a sense of unfairness because of race. 1990 was a deluded foolishness, but what was used as a pretext was the lack of proper distribution of the goods of the society. That was the pretext for it. That was not, I don't think that was the motive, but that was the pretext. And every time there's a big social boil, is because there's a grouping of people who feel that they're being treated unfairly.
And that's what is called perception. You know, perception. And perceptions might be very real.
Well, you know, one person reminded me when I was a very young adult that in this world, perception is your reality. Okay? Whether you like it or you don't like it, perception is your reality. That's your reality. We have a wonderful author. His name is V.S. Naipaul. Naipaul wrote a very famous book called The Middle Passage. It was a travel log through the Caribbean, or through the British West Indies as it was known then. And as he stopped in different islands, he gave a whole interpretation and a little short piece on a particular island. His piece on Trinidad in that volume is priceless. Priceless. In it, Naipaul describes Trinidad as a picaroon society.
As a what? A picaroon?
Picaroon society. Picaroon is the Spanish hustler. You know, the hustler who would make a quick dollar trading this, doing that, making this happen, doing this, dime a dozen, wheel and deal. So, you know, when they call the other islands call us the tricky Dadian, they're not far from the truth, eh? Because the tricky Dadian is really a synonym for the picaroon. Yes. And Naipaul says, you know, the Trinidadian feature is at the very heart, or the picaroon feature is at the very heart of our national psyche. You know, every nation has a perception by other nations of a particular characteristic.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dare to venture into what other nations might be considered, not now anyhow. But what I would say is most of the Caribbeans see Trinidad as Trinidadians, a group of smart men and smart women who could wheel and deal, who could hustle and jibe, and who could turn anything inside out, and who could dodge and roll and weave and bob. That's the perception. And Naipaul says Trinidad is a picaroon society. Not that Trinidad has picaroons, you know.
No, we are.
Trinidad, he says, is a picaroon society. Psychologically, he says the picaroon is incapable of accepting boundaries and limits. This is a hustler who uses wit to survive. Naipaul says slavery, the mixed population, the absence of national pride, the closed colonial system have to a remarkable degree recreated the attitudes of the Spanish picaroon world. You know, think to cry, you laughing, you know. Think to cry. And you laughing as if this is, you know, this is the biggest joke in his for this year. I know we only had the fourth, you know.
But wait, you know, I really want to know how long ago it was Naipaul wrote this thing. Like he has us down
6
to
days. 6 days. This was in the 1960s. Yes. Go and get a copy of the book, The Middle Passage, and go and read that article on Trinidad and Tobago in the Middle Passage. Listen, it's breathtaking. It's every now and again, I just read it to get sober.
You read it? Wait. Did you read it before you did this article? Eh?
Absolutely.
Okay, I hear you.
I went to read the piece again when I was doing this article. I pulled the book off my shelf, went straight, and I said, "No, Naipaul had something about this. Let me, and I read it and I laughed. I had to confess, I laughed because Naipaul has a way of turning a verse in a humorous way, and the verse contains a knife that cuts you to the core while the verse is turning. That's the guy. You know, so he says slavery, the mixed population, the absence of national pride, and the closed colonial system have to a remarkable degree recreated the attitudes of the Spanish picaroon world.
Thank God. Trinidad and Tobago. Oh Lord, mercy.
On a note of redemption, Naipaul would say, however, to bring political organization to the Picayune society with its taste for corruption and violence and its lack of respect of the person has its dangers. Such a society cannot immediately become responsible, but it can be re-educated only through responsibility. Change must come from the top. I want you to hear that this is straight out of Naipaul, vintage Naipaul, 1960s, okay? To bring political organization to the Picayune society with its taste for corruption and violence. Hear it, huh?
It sounds like 2022, 2023.
With its taste for corruption and violence and its lack of respect for the person.
Wow.
These are the things I constantly am lamenting about in Trinidad and Tobago. The corruption, the high crime rate in the country, the disrespect to one another that is now endemic even in everywhere in the society. He says such a society cannot immediately become responsible.
When?
Cannot immediately become responsible. It's only 60 years, friend. But it can be re-educated only through responsibility. So it cannot immediately become responsible, but it's only through responsibility that it can be rehabilitated. This is like a drug addict. A drug addict cannot immediately become responsible, but it's only through responsibility that a drug addict can become sober. That's basically what you're saying. And then he says change must come from the top. Wow. Lloyd Best used to say, Trinidad is not irresponsible.
No?
No. Trinidad is not irresponsible. And the Trinidadian is not irresponsible. They are unresponsible.
They're unresponsible.
What's the difference? The difference is this. A person who is irresponsible knows what they're supposed to do and chooses not to do what they're supposed to do. A person who is unresponsible don't even know what they're supposed to do. It worse. They don't even know what they're supposed to do. And so that was Lloyd Best's, that was his assessment of the problem of responsibility. Naipaul captures it and says that, only through responsibility can we change the society. And yet the society is allergic to responsibility. So this is the conundrum we are faced with. So if we want to think about Trinidad and Tobago for my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren, the first thing we have to do is we have to go to responsibility. Every one of us.
Wait. But you just say we are allergic to this thing. We are allergic to being responsible.
But there sometimes we have to take a Puritan. When you're lactose intolerant at ice cream serving, and you say to yourself, boy, this one worth it? I'm going to take my Puritan. Well, take your Puritan and take the responsibility with it.
Oh, gosh.
Now, what Naipaul has packed into this little sentence here, and I actually think is very, very powerful in terms of an analysis of where we are as society, is that we have to start educating the public to responsibility. Now, when I use the word justice is about responsibility. My responsibility to you, your responsibility to me, all of our responsibilities to the society as a whole, and the society's responsibility to each individual citizen and to us as a collective. Justice is a number of different responsibilities that comprise what we'll call justice. Now, change can only come from the top. Can only come from the top, you would say. Now, if Naipaul is right, then we need to hold our elites and our politicians, our religious leaders, our business leaders to a growth path of responsibility. And that is so important. And we ourselves have to make better choices for responsibility. Even when it's painful, even when it's difficult, we have to make better choices for responsibility. Because we are in all of us in this, And the very water that we drink, the air that we breathe, makes us feel as if we are allergic to responsibility. Well, sometimes you just have to buckle up and do what you have to do the right thing. So Naipaul has given us a real doozer there, that only responsibility can save us. It has to come from the top. And we, leaders in this society, we have to start by being responsible. And it starts in the little things and builds to the very big things. So this change in operation, I want to tell you, is going to be very painful. Very painful. Because, you know, we've become so accustomed to be irresponsible or unresponsible, depending on which one you want to go with, that is going to be a bitter pill to swallow if we're going to make it to turn Trinidad and Tobago into a nation that our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren are going to be happy to live in. And you know, the wonderful thing with us in Trinidad and Tobago, there's so much beauty in our land. Our people are the most extraordinary people in the world. Our hospitality to each other, our fun-loving to each other, our capacity for inclusivity, our ability to take in and support the one who was in crisis. You know, there's so many wonderful, wonderful bits and pieces about this beautiful nation. So many, so many.
Is there kind of a paradox somewhere inside there, an enigma, something inside there with our
enigma? Word of the day, enigma. 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 This is more than a paradox. This is an enigma. So if we're going to move to responsibility, that is to justice, at best this is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult uphill battle. But okay, there are times in your life you just have to say, all right, this one's going to be tough, and take it for the team, and let's move forward together with it. And if we want to answer the question, if we want Trinidad and Tobago to attract our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, we have to start taking responsibility right now, and we have to do plenty better. Responsibility to the environment. Just start with that one. No slash and burn, no dumping, no throwing the plastic bottles into streams. All those things that we do so easily and so flippantly, all of that just has to go. We have to grow up. Basically, we have to grow up.
The challenge is sometimes, you know, people do it so unconsciously. They don't even recognize they do it, you know.
Unresponsibility.
That's it. Lloyd Best, I love it.
Unresponsible. That's it. So if we look at justice, which is a distillation of responsibilities, in his Republic, Plato explores the notion of justice. And he argues convincingly, I think, that it is in each person's best interest to be just.
I like that. It is in each
person's best interest to be just. We don't believe that because we live in this kind of kelter society.
Yeah.
If everybody did a fair day's work and everybody treated everybody who came to them equally in service delivery. And if everybody was trying to do their job better and better every single day and put out what was required for whoever they were serving, and everybody treated everybody fairly in society, 90% of the things we complain about gone.
Yeah.
They're just gone. Because the roads would be fixed. The electricity wouldn't be failing. People wouldn't be overusing electricity or overusing water. We wouldn't have potholes and leaks in the road would not just go the way it is. And all the corruption that we complain of just wouldn't happen. So he says that if everybody, it is to your own best self-interest for everybody to treat everybody justly in a society. It's a wonderful concept. This argument is done in both an ethical and a political context. Because without justice, there can be no republic. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now.
Wow.
We are having the unraveling of our republic because of fundamental injustice in our society. Wow. Corruption is injustice, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Corruption is injustice. We are unraveling because of injustice in the society. And we have to see that what's happening here is an unravel, a serious, serious unravel. And if you understand that, then you understand that if we want to evolve, it has to start by each of us choosing to be just to each other, to our employer and to the state.
Yeah, but you made a statement a little earlier on where you were quoting and you were saying that it has to begin with the top. It
Absolutely.
has to begin. Wow.
Absolutely. So not only do we have each person to be just, but the elites, the government, the religious leaders, all the leaders in society, we have to start by treating other people justly and fairly. I'm giving the example for the rest of the society to do it. We have to start. It had to come from us. Now, if the citizens of the republic cannot trust each other to act justly, there's going to be no social cohesion, no bond that holds the individuals intercollective, no trust of neighbor, and ultimately no real community, no real family, and no integrity. So if you want to undermine the very fabric of civilization, then corruption, which is treating people differently and unjustly, is the easiest way to gnaw away at the very fabric of civilization. And we're doing a pretty good job right now in Trinidad and Tobago by gnawing away at the very fabric of the civilization.
And you use the word unraveling, and we are seeing it every single day. I mean, 2022, 600 and something murders. 2022.
Yes.
The whole of society seems like it's unraveling.
And that's why I'm proposing, as a young republic, we need to face our truth very consciously, really consciously. It's my considered view that the core challenge facing our nation is that we, the citizens, have not committed to justice on the individual level, on the level of organization, and on the level of the nation. And until we commit to justice, then we will not build a civilization. We'll continue tearing down everything that we build and build so well. Because today you might get this and this and this favors, but tomorrow you suck in salt because the people you know no longer there. There are new people in, and your competitors now know the new people, so they now gain all the favors and you getting nothing. That's not good for civilization. It's just not good. So we have to continue. We have to continue. This lack of commitment of the citizen to justice has become a cancer eating the body politic of our beloved Trinidad and Tobago. It makes no sense. As Rhoda says, this is not a fete here. This is madness.
Madness.
This is madness. Madness. You know, every good citizen wants a commissioner of police, a minister of national security, a prime minister to solve the murder problem. And we've been doing this now since the 1980s, you know.
Yeah.
This saga has been playing since the 1980s, and since then they cannot solve it. And I don't think that they can solve the problem of high crime and murder until we understand and are willing to recognize that the murder problem has its roots in a more fundamental challenge, and that's the challenge of pervasive injustice in our society and the whole of our nation. And until we are willing, all of us, to face that, our leaders can't lead us where we are unwilling to go. That is a fact. They cannot lead us to justice if we, the body of Trinidad and Tobago, are unwilling to go to responsibility, and that is unwilling to go to justice. They can't lead us there, not unless we are willing to go. Do they have a responsibility to lead us? Absolutely. And do we have to hold them accountable? Absolutely. But we know how many regimes have failed, how many prime ministers, how many national security leaders, how many
commissioners
have failed, because we are unready to take responsibility. And I know this is a bitter pill, and I know this is a difficult thing that I'm saying, but each one of us have to be willing and ready to take responsibility for ourselves and the nation. Basically, what I'm telling you is this is not a them problem. This is a we problem. And we, capital W, capital E, we need to commit to solve this while holding office holders to a very high standard. We need to commit to solving this problem. Whether we look at the work of the Integrity Commission or the lack of resources that, you know, frustrates the sentencing commission, or the number of people in remand, or the fact that successive governments have broken the law, we need to be proactive and timely in addressing this problem and solving the problem of fundamental justice in sweet tea and tea. And it needs to be timely, it needs to be proactive. We need a timely, proactive judiciary that ensures justice for all our citizens is done, and is done all the time.
See, there's justice, boy, justice, and there's no justice, and the man down below, when he doesn't see justice, you know, then that's where you're going to get your uprising. That's where you're seeing people burning tires at the side of the road. That's where you've seen people going crazy.
Absolutely.
No justice.
So the thing is, if we want transparency, we also need whistleblower legislation that allows for corruption to be exposed with a sense of safety. Also, effective procurement legislation to ensure transparency and integrity in all states' procurement. That would go a long, long way, a real long way. We do not have, however, an adequate legal framework for transparency and integrity, because we do not have sufficient citizens who will demand justice, transparency, and integrity from all the citizens of this Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. So even when we have Some of the legislation in place, for instance, the Sentencing Commission, is all there. Commissioners were appointed. They have never been funded.
Wow.
And their job is to ensure that the sentences that are being given through the courts are amicable in terms of what the society needs in this time, that the court system works adequately to understand the thinking of the people of the nation and the administration of justice and ensure these fit together for Trinidad and Tobago. And they've never been funded.
I can't believe what you're telling me. They've never been funded.
They've never been funded.
But they've been around so long.
They were appointed, they were never funded.
Jesus.
So I'm saying there's one root to this web of challenge facing our nation. We, the citizens, have not committed ourselves to living justice. Integrity is the fruit of a commitment to justice.
Yes.
Institutional unfairness is what happens when there is only a commitment to self. And you have to see the commitment to self as opposed to the commitment to justice, because the commitment to justice is a commitment to we.
Yeah.
That we all will get what we all need to participate and to do what is required for us in society. A commitment to self is that I will make sure I get what I need. I will grease the wheel and I will do what I have to do to get what I need to do my business in the society. And that's a big, big difference. And I would dare say, brother, one of the big challenges that we have.
You know, remember we did a show, Ubuntu. I'm just hearing it, you know what I mean? But, but when we stuck with the I and I, you know, then the capital W, capital E.
Can't play.
Can't play.
Can't play. Can't play. That was scholar, Randry. And in a paper on Plato's concept of justice, he says, Plato considered that justice is the quality of soul, in virtue of which men set aside the irrational desire to taste every pleasure and to get a selfish satisfaction out of every object and accommodate themselves to the discharge of a single function for the general benefit.
Wow.
Now, we fallen real far from the standards, you know.
Yeah.
It's a quality of soul. It's a spiritual problem. The quality of soul, in virtue of which we are willing to set aside the irrational desire to taste every pleasure. I want you to hear that. Plato considered when a person has a desire to taste every pleasure, that's irrational. That's irrational. Now, when we facing up the mother of all carnivals, where there's another show. Let me not be distracted here. But the irrational desire to taste every pleasure and to get a selfish satisfaction out of every object and accommodate themselves to the discharge of a single function for the general benefit. So he's saying that until the citizenry are willing to commit to the common good, and willing to sacrifice tasting every pleasure, and willing to sacrifice the selfish satisfaction out of which we get wherever we get, that's when a nation becomes a great republic. And it starts by sacrifice. And we have to be willing to sacrifice. So justice is not a mathematical formula. It's not the size of the piece of cake. Measuring for equality. It's a virtue, which is a habit of the soul.
Well, I love that. I love that. A habit of the soul.
It has to be inculcated from inside of us, which means there have to be interiority if we're going to cultivate virtues. And if we're going to cultivate justice. There has to come from an interiority. And it is a bond that joins its citizens together to form a nation. Take justice away, there cannot be a nation. If there's not justice in a family, the family don't hold together. A community, a club, any organization, if there's no sense of fairness, it unravels very, very, very quickly. It is the harmony of the parts that make up a whole. It is the soul. It is to the soul as health is to the body. It is a spiritual quality that we all must cultivate, regardless of our religious persuasion. I would say without the cultivation of an appreciation of justice at every level of our society, we will continue to accelerate into the mire of lawlessness that we have been witnessing over the past decades.
Unraveling is the word I use. Unraveling. Yeah, we're unraveling.
Enigma.
Enigma. That is that thing.
The enigma of unraveling. How about that, Rob?
Yeah. We're going with that.
In his 35th message for World Day of Peace, St. John Paul II said, there's no peace without justice. And you know, we in Sweet TNT, we are unwilling to make the basic commitment incumbent upon the citizen for justice. We are unwilling to do it on responsibility. And until we are willing to make that commitment to responsibility and to justice, we can't find peace. We cannot find peace. Peace, justice, fairness in society, ease of doing business are all symbiotic relations. All. They all go together. They all go together. So in conclusion, here's what I want to say. To achieve justice in the Republic, according to Plato, we need to have first just laws that are second strengthened by the institutions and the resources that we need for them to work. And third, citizens formed with sound character. We need three things. The first is just laws. But you could have just laws if you don't have citizens formed with sound character. It's not going to impact, you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't have strong institutions that would be a bulwark against the individual desire to corrupt, if the institutions aren't strong to hold the line, then you're not going to have it. So these three things, just laws, strong institutions, and sound character of your citizens, that's how we get to a republic. I need you to hear this, you know.
I'm listening. I buckled up and I'm listening.
You need to hear this very clearly and very carefully too. We need a national campaign to promote justice as a virtue lived by every citizen.
Wow.
That's what we need. Because if we have that campaign, and if we start exercising the muscle of responsibility and justice, this country will get better really, really quickly. If Trinidad and Tobago Transparency Institute intends to achieve its goal, then it needs to work with all people, groups, and institutions. We need this to be led by the example of the elites in our society.
You come back to the leaders. You came back to the leaders by the elites in our society. They must set the example.
Because it can only be healed at the top. From the top, he says. We must think of these islands as our home for 4 generations. Then ask yourself, really, really ask yourself, what do we need to do today if our children and our children's children are to stay and make TNT their home? That's really the big question we've been asking.
You know, I needed to give us an action step, you know. We need an action step with all of this, you know.
a national campaign for education for justice.
As you wish for us.
A
First the thing,
national,
and there's the action step.
a national campaign of education for justice that transforms minds, hearts, and actions of the citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. I think that would be a great first step. A great first step. The church says action on behalf of justice and the transformation of the world fully appears to us as a constitutive dimension of the preaching of the gospel.
Amen. Amen. Well, Archbishop G, what a conversation to lead off the new year with. You know, what a conversation. The struggle. Yes, and we are struggling to evolve into a republic. And you've just given us an action step there, something to really think and to meditate on as we begin this new year. But you know, more than that, we're going to need your prayers. So we're going to need your prayer.
Father, we thank you for your tremendous love, and we pray, oh God, that you give us a grace this day, a grace to open our hearts, a grace to live and love, a grace to allow your love into our life, a grace to be with you and to really open ourselves to you. We ask, oh God, out of your infinite goodness, that you show us a way forward and give us all that we need to love you, to serve you, to be with you now, and to bring transformation to our beautiful country. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Archbishop J. Go pick up your Catholic news, everybody. You know what I mean? All amazing articles, conversations with Archbishop J. God bless you and Happy New Year, everybody.
God bless.